It is a rather watershed day for the great state of Mississippi. But first and foremost, we got to just let you know, folks, we need you to come down to Mississippi Blood Services. Just takes 30 minutes or so. It's painless. They take care of you. The staff is fantastic. Donate blood. Do it. Do it in the name of, in the memory of the great J.T. Williamson himself, who said, you don't understand how critical is the need for blood and how valuable it is to life until you're on the other side of the bag. I'll never forget that. But joining us now down here at Mississippi Blood Services is our good friend Aaron Rice with the Mississippi Justice Institute. Good to see you, Aaron. Always a pleasure having you on middays. What a day it is.
It is a day. Thanks for having me, Gerard.
You bet. So I see you got the entire opinion, right?
This is double-sided printed, and I couldn't even read the whole thing before coming on here today. It's got to be at least 140, 150 pages or so. But
Jeez.
Yeah.
And folks, if that are listening and not watching, it's double-sided, but I'd say that's 3/4 of an inch thick or so.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
it's a thick opinion. Now, of course, that includes the dissents and the concurring opinions and all that. So I did. Thankfully, and I'd already read the draft opinion, of course, like everybody had, so that helped. I was able to speed through the main opinion, noted a little bit of a few differences there, but nothing big, and then kind of took a look, sped read through the rest of it, too.
Yeah.
Come on here today.
You lawyers are kind of wordy, and you're word people, aren't you?
That's right.
I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I was involved I'm very fortunate to knock on a whole bunch of wood. In my 33-year business career, I only was a party in 3 lawsuits. That's really pretty incredible.
That's pretty good.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
An ex-employee,
yeah,
a competitor,
yeah,
and a customer.
Yeah.
And all settled out of court,
yeah.
Honestly. Well, the ex-employee, we got dropped from the suit, and it became a matter between the employee and the other employer. But nonetheless, what I remember about one of those cases real quick is that we ended up having to depose a psychiatrist, okay? And not a psychologist, an MD psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist was talking about obsessive-compulsive disorder, which was at the heart, by the way, of this suit, okay, with one of the parties. And he said that lawyers were the most obsessive-compulsive people. He said, here's what he said. Anybody that brings a foot of paper in here and calls it a brief, they're
I agree with that. I can't really argue. We are pretty obsessive.
Oh, gosh. But here's what's been fascinating to me, Aaron, besides the opinion, which I don't know, is that, I'm a simple person. It just seems pretty simple to me that this is not a matter for federal law, and that Roe, which was federal law, of course, is really inconsistent with the concept of federalism in the Constitution, but the dissenters didn't seem to care about that.
Yeah, they didn't, and like I said, I only was able to kind of speed through their dissent, but yes, it is interesting. It's striking to see the difference between the majority opinion is kind of what we haven't seen in a long time that I'm glad to see in a majority Supreme Court opinion, which is it's looking at the text and the history and really analyzing the Constitution. And the dissent just starts right off on the policy implications of today's opinion and how, kind of the just how terrible they view that. And, they later, try to slide into some new kind of approaches to argue that this right to abortion has some kind of long history in the U.S. that should be, recognized under the Constitution. But again, it's more of a policy argument than anything. And so it is interesting to see that contrast.
Yeah, and that's what, honestly, I've tried to focus on, even when I've interviewed Lynn Fitch, our Attorney General, that this really isn't so much about what's at the core of Roe, which is abortion itself.
Exactly.
We got to separate that from the Constitution and the original vision of our founders, which was people need to govern themselves at state level, essentially.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, I would put a caveat on that. So first of all, the Constitution itself is neutral on the question of abortion. This is a case about who decides. It's not a question about whether abortion is good or bad or any of that. So the Constitution itself is neutral. I would say the majority opinion is neutral on the question of abortion. It's just, again, answering the question of who decides.
Okay.
I actually think the dissent is not neutral. The dissent is trying to impose its view of its philosophy of life and when it begins and all of that on the nation through a judicial opinion. So, but yes, the Constitution itself is neutral on the question.
And back to the dissent, I think that's what disturbs Americans about how our courts have become activists, because that really is more of an activist position as opposed to a legal position.
Yeah.
It's really, you're basically trying to say, Justice dissenters here, that no, this really isn't a good thing for certain people in the country, therefore we got to uphold it. Well, that's not your job.
No, it's absolutely not the job of the judiciary to be making law. And again, when you read through, as I've quickly, been able to kind of speed read through some of it, but you see in the dissent that that's what they're primarily motivated by and concerned about is policy implications, which again, just for the listeners, this doesn't settle anything about abortion. This just means that now states are going to decide this question. We are all still going to have the ability to participate in the political process. Anybody who has a strong view of abortion is going to be able to participate in that process, run for office if you want to, or vote for somebody that shares your view. But this doesn't mean one way or the other what's going to happen. It just means where is it going to be decided and by who. And
it feels like that's been misrepresented, that the message has been, oh my gosh, women won't be able to get abortions anywhere in this country anymore. That's kind of been the talking point. It's not true. That's not true.
That's exactly. And there's been some other scaremongering tactics that even made their way into the dissent in this opinion, acting as if other rights are now going to be in jeopardy, which is not the case. But yeah, I do agree with you that that message seems to have been intentionally misinterpreted.
The Wall Street Journal this morning published an excellent map that basically depicts the status by state now that the Supreme Court has ended the so-called constitutional right to an abortion. And a constitutional right obviously means that it's protected in all states, and that states can't conflict with it in their statute, right?
And some constitutional rights are protected in all states through the 14th Amendment. I don't want to get into the details, but that was the argument here, was that there was a right to an abortion, to have an abortion, and that it did apply in all 50 states. And today's opinion, yes, says that's not the case.
Okay. So when you look on the map here, just in Mississippi, for example, and they kind of categorize it across 5 categories: near total abortion, could soon ban nearly all, could revive unenforced ban, neither banned nor protected, and right to abortion protected. And Mississippi falls into the category of could soon ban nearly all. And there's a footnote on that, meaning we don't really know what we're going to do here in Mississippi, do we?
Yeah, well, we may have a trigger law. I think we do have a trigger law. And I have not had a chance to look at it and see what exactly it's going to take us to. But that will, obviously, the 15-week abortion ban has now been upheld.
Okay.
And then
which is present law in Mississippi.
Yeah,
right?
that was present law. Now it doesn't have the cloud of a judicial opinion over it that is enjoining its enforcement.
Gotcha.
And then from here, I believe that what will likely happen is the Attorney General will need to certify that this today's opinion has indeed overruled Roe and Casey, which will then probably trigger other laws we have on the books in Mississippi.
Okay. Well, it will be very interesting to see exactly what the reaction is across the 50 states.
Exactly.
I mean, we're obviously talking about Mississippi and what may happen here. We got the speaker coming on in a couple of segments to talk about some initiatives he and his team have related to that. But I don't see how the left can say, well, they've completely, with this opinion, completely outlawed abortion. That's just not true, and it bothers me. And I think there's a lot of people that believe that as well.
It's not true, and I think, though, you're exactly right about it. It's going to not only be interesting to see what happens in the 50 states, but I think this is a great moment to see federalism in action and how our country is actually supposed to operate. We've gotten away from this a lot. I think COVID kind of illustrated this to people a lot, too. I mean, if you're making big decisions that people are very divided about, like vaccine mandates and things like that, you don't want that decided at the federal level where, the entire country has to abide by some rule that there are deep divisions on. And that's what happened with abortion. I think back in the 70s and earlier, we had gotten away from federalism, and I think we're getting back to it. And this is more the way our country was intended to operate, and I think it operates better this way, which is we can tone down some of these divisions if we bring the decisions closer to home. So, in California, if they want to have very liberalized abortion laws, I'm sure they do want to have that, and they probably will have that. Here in Mississippi, where, our citizens don't want that and have very different views on life, we may have more restrictive laws, but let's let those decisions be made, closer to home.
That's the way it's supposed to work. You hang around?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. We'll talk some more, and then we got Speaker of the House Philip Gunn coming on at 12:37. Of course, we got Mississippi Mississippi Blood Services, Brittany, will be on to wrap up the show today. But right now, it's Aaron Rice with the Mississippi Justice Institute. He's going to stay through the break. Stay with us. We are at Mississippi Blood Services today because we need you to come out and give blood. But right now, we're talking to Aaron Rice with the Mississippi Justice Institute. We've been talking about this watershed day, really, transformational day. The Attorney General Lynn Fitch described it as a new era in America.
I'd like to say, too, I mean, congrats to her and to everyone in the Attorney General's office. Great job. Particularly, I'd like to give a shout-out to Scott Stewart, the Solicitor General, and his team. I mean, they put a great legal brief together here. Scott did a great oral argument. So, yeah, I mean, it's a neat thing to see Mississippians making history. And to your point, yeah, not just a watershed day. I was talking with somebody on my way in here, and I told them it just felt like it was weird. You can feel the history being made today. You know, usually you feel like you kind of look back and realize the historical moments, but you can feel the history today as it happens.
Well, as it was when it was upheld.
Yeah, exactly.
In 73, right?
Yeah. But, yeah, you know that America is going to look different going forward, and, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you know, one of the things that gets tied into this conversation is the dissenters and their supporters, the Roe supporters and Casey supporters, you know, act like constitutional decisions should never be overruled under any circumstances. And, of course, you know, stare decisis is important. You do give a lot of weight to these decisions. Now, first of all, when the court is interpreting the Constitution, they're supposed to give the least amount of weight to prior decisions because they're supposed to get the Constitution right, you know. But regardless, even important constitutional decisions do get overruled. And you can't envision the way America would look today if we had not done that. You know, overruled Plessy v. Ferguson and a lot of other decisions like that. So, you know, but today is one of those days that a longstanding constitutional case from the Supreme Court has been overruled, and America's going to look different going forward.
No doubt about it. And we should, I think, take some comfort, Aaron, in the fact that our system worked. Yeah. Our system is working. It took some time, no doubt, and that's disappointing that it took time. And really, while obviously at the heart of this is abortion, which those of us who are pro-life oppose and believe is a heinous act, those who are pro-choice don't see it that way. That's fine. They have the right to that opinion. But as we did in the last segment, we should focus on the fact that this victory is as important for the Constitution, for the law in this country, for the concept of federalism, because at the end of the day, I'm not truly sure this has a marked and measurable impact on the number of abortions performed in this country, because while states such as Mississippi will be busy acting on this decision to perhaps further restrict abortion, some totally ban it, you got other states that are going to be busy codifying law that just opens it up and makes it even more accessible.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And, of course, we haven't been in this world before to see, you know, is there any effect on, you know, just your state not sanctioning it and maybe changing people's minds or things like that. It will be interesting to see what the effect is. But I agree with you that the primary, again, I said at the top of this interview, this is really an opinion about who decides. It's not about abortion. It's about who decides abortion. And so it's really what this has done is made a structural change to government, which is a good change, you know. And one thing I noticed in the opinion, I believe it was a change from the leaked draft, but in the majority today, I think it was a change. But the majority took head on the discussion of public opinion and whether that should sway the court. And, you know, the strong views on either side and not wanting to look like the court caved to pressure. And the court just said, look, our job is to interpret the Constitution. We can't let external factors affect that, which is really a little bit of a change. I mean, from especially, you know, we all know that Roberts is kind of very concerned about the integrity of the court, you know, and the views of the court, and will try not to make any wild swings one way or the other because he's worried about that. And so I thought it was interesting to see the majority addressing that head on and saying, we interpret the Constitution, period. That's what we're here to do.
All right, from a legal perspective, is there a way that this opinion could make its way back to the Supreme Court and the overturning could be sustained or what do you call it, stayed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could certainly happen. So what you would see there is down the road somebody in a state with a restriction on abortion that they don't agree with, and they file a suit and they work it all the way back up to the U.S. Supreme Court and they address the question again. Now, the chances of that, as you saw here, it took decades and decades for Roe and Casey to be overruled, and the Supreme Court gets to decide what cases it's going to take. And so it's not just going to hear every challenge to an abortion law or regulation in the states, every single time there is a challenge. So, assuming that could happen down the road, I imagine that would be very far down the road before that was ever taken up.
Yeah, but it would have to start as a case at state level, right?
And honestly, you would have to have four justices on the Supreme Court who voted to even take the case to begin with. And so,
because that's how it works.
That's how it works. And so you're not going to get four justices who even want to take the case.
Not today.
Or anytime soon.
Yeah, I got you. Makes total sense. So right now, I think, like I said, all the states we got Speaker Gunn coming on to tell us what is being planned here in the state of Mississippi from a legislative perspective. So that's what's on tap. We got some other, besides Roe, we got some other decisions still awaiting, right? Still to come.
I'm not even sure what's still outstanding, to be honest with you. I've been so focused on waiting to see this one. We've gotten some interesting ones that have come down. There was the New York case that, the Supreme Court struck down restrictions on concealed carry in New York, which was interesting. I mean, the restrictions there basically made it impossible to carry a weapon in New York, and you had to show that you had a special reason to want to do so. And again, I mean, if you kind of applied that to other, and we're talking about an enumerated right, the Second Amendment. But if you applied that to other constitutional rights, most people would easily see how ridiculous it is to be able to have to show that you've got a special reason to need to exercise your free speech rights.
I got you.
So the court got rid of that. There was also a case under the Equal Protection Clause. The court said that if a state is going to allow public money to follow a student to certain schools, to private schools, they can't exclude religious schools from that. So basically they can't discriminate against a religious school and say, well, every other school can get public money that follows the student, but not you.
Right.
And so, so we've seen a big one. That was a big one. So we've seen a lot of important decisions coming out this term.
So we got that, and praying the high school coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's right. I did forget about that. Yeah. That was a big one. Yeah. So you're definitely seeing a different Supreme Court. You're seeing, how important it is, what the Supreme Court looks like. And I think a lot of people already understood that. But for any who did not, you're seeing it today. And even those who did understand it, I think may be understanding it even more.
Yeah. So that's a big one as well. It's been an active term, is it not, for the Supreme Court? Let's see, I think I had another. There's a climate change case. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not familiar with that one.
It is. It was one that was filed in West Virginia. West Virginia versus the EPA. Can the EPA require states to reduce carbon emissions to control global warming?
Yeah.
We're awaiting the end of term Supreme Court decision on that.
Yeah.
We already talked about the access to abortion, which is the Roe v. Wade, the prayer in public school. Immigration asylum policy. That's another one, and that is Biden versus Texas. Does the Biden administration have the power to end Trump's Remain in Mexico policy?
Wow, yeah, that's right. I knew that one was coming. And then also, we've even had a case that, again, the Mississippi Attorney General was involved in and the Mississippi Justice Institute was involved in that got decided this term. That was the Biden vaccine mandate. We filed a legal challenge along with the Attorney General's office to the OSHA vaccine mandates, and the U.S. Supreme Court sided with us on that, at least preliminarily, which was enough to get OSHA to take down their vaccine mandate. So you've seen a lot of these, particularly some of the ones you just went through, the vaccine mandate we just talked about, the abortion case that we're talking about today. A lot of these are who decides questions. Can the EPA force the states to do this? Can the Supreme Court force the states to have the abortion policy the Supreme Court wants them to? Can OSHA make all the states have, people in all the states have vaccine mandates, or employers in all the states? And so a lot of these really are their structural questions, not necessarily about is a vaccine good or bad, is abortion good or bad. It's who decides.
Yeah.
Do the states decide? Do the local governments decide?
It seems like that's getting lost in the discussion.
Yeah,
we're focused too much, I guess, on the issue that's at hand rather than who decides the issue.
Yeah, right? That's right. But I do think that we're seeing a good overall trend where a lot of the divisions, we all know how polarized the country is.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is because we've been asking our federal institutions to try to settle national debates for us, and they've proven incapable of doing that. And so we're finally getting back away from that.
I totally agree. So I'll just end by saying my confidence in our systems, our structure of our systems, to some degree was affirmed today.
Yeah.
And I don't say restored, because I've always had confidence, but it was just kind of validated today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that kind of the way you see it?
I see it that way, and I've been seeing it go this way for a while, and I've been very encouraged to see the direction we're heading in, yes.
I am too. Aaron, appreciate you coming in and joining us here at Mississippi Blood Services. We'll take a break. When we come back, we got Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn. Stay with us.